Welcome to Unit 2. In this unit, we'll be dealing with the characteristics of a company. We'll be seeing 10 characteristics of a company in this unit. And these 10 characteristics are: the first one is separate legal entity, perpetual succession, limited liability, separate property, the transferability of shares, common seal, capacity to sue, the application of doctrine of ultra-vires, winding up, and the legal restrictions. We'll see one by one. Separate legal entity. See, when a company is registered, a new legal person is born. So the registration is again a lengthy procedure which we'll be seeing in due course of time. And see, when a company is registered, for example, if 10 people come together and form a company known as ABC Company Limited, after registration, there are 11 persons, 10 humans, and another one is a legal person, the ABC company. So after registration, the company is regarded as an entity which is separate from its members. After incorporation, the company becomes a body corporate by the name contained in the Memorandum of Association. So Memorandum of Association as well as Articles of Association are two important documents of any company, which we'll be seeing maybe in the next sessions. But right now, just come to know that the incorporation of the company becomes a body corporate by the name which is contained in the Memorandum of Association. The company then becomes a legal person, and it is invisible and intangible. Nobody can see a company. A person can see only the assets of the company or maybe the members of the company. It doesn't have a physique or a soul, and it lives only in the eyes of law. As I told you earlier, 10 humans forming a company, 11 persons are there in the eyes of law, and the company exists only in the eyes of law. So another characteristic is that a company is a person entirely different from its members. And since a company doesn't have either a psyche or a soul, it can only act through human agency. Now this case, Salmon versus Salmon and Co. This case is a classical one, which was decided in the year 1897, which brings out clearly the aspect of separate legal entity. Now it's all about a person called Salmon. He was a leather merchant. He was having a fledgling business, and he sold his leather business to a company known as Salmon and Co. Limited for a sum of 30,000 pounds. In fact, he formed the company. The company was formed by him, and the members included his wife, daughter, and 4 sons. So there were 7 members, including himself. And in the company, Salmon took 23,000 shares of £1 each and debentures worth of 10,000 pounds. And the other amount was raised from creditors. His family members, that is his wife, his daughter, and his sons, took 1 share of £1 each. So that was the structure of the company. However, later on, the company ran into difficulties and it had to be wound up. The creditors, they claimed the whole of the assets of the company. Their contention was that the company was a mere agent of Salmon, because though it is a company, the entire members were Salmon and his family members, and Salmon was holding majority stake in the company. So they contended that it was quite natural that the creditors contended that Salmon was a mere agent of the company. However, the court rejected the contention of the creditors. They said that the company was, in the eyes of law, a separate person, and this company was independent from Salmon, and hence it was not his agent. So this is a classical case which brings out the aspect of separate legal entity. Now, the second characteristic which we have to deal with is the perpetual succession. Now, what is perpetual succession? It means that the membership of a company may change from time to time, but it is not going to affect the continuity of the company. The company will have continuity of existence irrespective of the change in the membership of that particular company. For example, take the case of companies like Tata Steel or Tata Motors. Tata Steel was known as Tata Iron and Steel Company, and it is about 3 or 4 generations old. And Tata Motors was known as Tata Telco or Tata Engine and Locomotive Company Limited. Again, it is also 3 or 4 generations old. The first members and maybe the second generation and third generation members are no more, but still the company exists, and maybe it will exist for another generations also. So it means that the members may come and go, but the company can go on forever until dissolved by the process of law. Earlier you saw that he is a legal person. The birth is through law, and its death can also occur through the due process of law. A legal luminary, F. Pollock, he compared the company's perpetuity to River Thames. According to him, Thames is still the same, though the parts which compose it are changing every instant, and a company by perpetual succession is also similar to this. Since he belonged to UK, he compared it to Thames. Thames. Had he been in India, or somebody would have written, some legal luminary of India would have compared the company to Ganges or Indus. Again, it's all the same. So it keeps on changing, but still the company is one and the same. Now, the next characteristic is limited liability. A company is incorporated with limited liability, and in fact, it is the beauty of becoming a member of a company, because a member will have a limited liability, and this liability will be limited either by shares or by guarantee. See, the liability of any member will be limited to the extent of face value of shares. Should be careful about the word face value of shares held by the member, if it is limited by shares, or it will be limited by the amount guaranteed if the company is one which is limited by guarantee. So two types, limited by shares and limited by guarantee. For instance, if the face value of a share in a company is 100 rupees, a member who is holding a share, one share of rupees 100, then his liability will be limited only to this amount of rupees 100 and nothing more. Now this will be illustrated by a case. Imagine the face value of a company known as A Company Limited is rupees 100. Now, I'm going to give you a few situations. So tell me, what would be the liability of a shareholder in the event of winding up of this company, this A Company Limited? So imagine the situations are, if 100 rupees is paid up, the whole of the 100 rupees is paid up, only 75 is paid up, and only 50 rupees is paid up. So just ponder over it. What would be the liability of a member if the company is wound up in these three different situations? I give you a little time to make up your mind. Well, I'm sure you will be ready with the answer, and I'm sure it's going to be right also. So the liability of the shareholder in the first situation is, as you guessed, it is nil, because the entire amount of 100 has been paid up. So this person will not have to bring even a single pie in the event of winding up of the company. In the second case, since only 75 rupees is paid up, 25 rupees 25 is still pending. So the liability of in this particular instance will be 25 rupees for each member. And the last one, as again you have guessed, it is going to be a mere 50 rupees. So in the event of winding up of this company, a member who has paid up only rupees 50 will have to bring up 50 rupees, and it's limited to 50 only. So I'm sure this has brought out clearly as to what is limited liability. And the next one which we have to see is separate property. Since a company is a legal person, it has all the right to acquire, own, enjoy, or dispose of properties in its own name. The capital of the company may be contributed by the shareholders or maybe members. However, they cannot be considered as the joint owners of the company's property. The company's property pertains to the company and the company only, and the members can never claim the ownership of the property. For example, the Tatas may be owning a large number of companies: Tata Steel, Tata Motors, Tata Coffee, Tata Tea, and so on, a large number of companies. The property owned by each and every company will be the sole property of the company, and the Tatas can never claim the property of the company to be their own property. So that is what we mean by separate property. So as I told you, no claim can be made by any member on any property of the company, and it pertains to just the company alone. The next one is the transferability of shares. The shares of a public company are freely transferable. So any person owning any share can transfer it to anybody. He can sell it to anybody. He can sell his shares in the open market. So the market for shares is the stock exchange. So through the stock exchange, any person holding a share can sell his shares. There is, however, some restriction in the Articles of Association. I told you about the Articles of Association. There are some restrictions with respect to certain type of companies. And in that instance, it is transferable, but it's not freely transferable. For instance, the shares of a public limited company is not freely transferable. To transfer the shares of a public limited company, the member should get the consent of the other members also, but still it is transferable if he can get the consent of the other members. And the next one which we have to see is common seal. As we have seen earlier, the company has no physical existence. It doesn't have a physic or a soul. It can enter into contract only through human beings. Now, to enter into a contract, a company should require a common seal. Why? Because if you are to enter into a contract, the contracting parties should put their signature, then only the agreement becomes a contract. Since a company cannot put its signature, so the seal, the common seal, becomes its signature. So the seal of the company represents the official signature of the company. So any contract that a company enters into, so once the seal, the common seal is put on the agreement, it becomes the official signature of the company. Next one which we have to see is the seventh one. It's about the capacity to sue. Since a company is a legal person, and different from the shareholders, the company can file a suit to take care of its own interest, and another person, some person, to take care of his interest can sue against the company also in the name. For example, if I bring out a suit against a company known as ABC company, then I can straight away file a suit in the name of the ABC company, and the ABC company can file a suit before the court of law in my name also. So that is capacity to sue. And the next one is doctrine of ultra vires. This is a very important characteristics which we have to understand, and it is an essential feature of the company also. The companies are not supposed to do anything which is outside the powers that is stipulated in the object clause of the Memorandum of Association. As I told you earlier, the Memorandum of Association and Articles of Association are two important documents which will be seen in the coming sessions. So in the Memorandum of Association, there are a number of clauses, of which one clause is the object clause, and each and every company is expected to do everything only according to what is mentioned in the object clause and nothing beyond that. If a company does something which is beyond which is stipulated in the object clause, all those things which is done beyond the which is stipulated in the object clause is known as ultra vires act. And it is said that in legal terms, it can say that all ultra virus acts are null and void, and it is void ab initio, means from the very beginning. So it's not at all valid. It will not hold in the court of law. This ultra virus act is in no case binding on the company. It cannot even be ratified by the unanimous act of all the members of the company. So imagine there are 1,000 members in a company and the company has done an ultra virus act and all the 1,000 persons come together and ratify this act, but still, as it is mentioned, it is void ab initio and it can never be ratified. So this is a classical case which brings out the aspect of doctrine of ultra virus. The case is known as Ashbury Railway Carriage and Iron Company Limited versus Russia. Again, it's a very old case. It was decided in the year 1875. So the object clause of Ashbury Railway Carriage and Iron Company Limited, it is given. It's given in red, and you should understand it word by word. The object of the company was to make and sell or lend on hire the railway carriages and wagons and all kinds of railway plans, fittings, machinery and rolling stock, and to carry on the business of mechanical engineers and general contractors. You should reread it and understand each and every word. So especially the word general contractors, mechanical engineers and general contractors. So in due course of its business, the company contracted with Mrs. Ritchie to finance the construction of a bridge in Belgium. Remember, to finance the construction of a bridge in Belgium. The agreement was in fact ratified by all the members of the company. Later, the company understood that it was beyond the object clause of the company. So what they did was they repudiated the agreement, saying that this agreement with Mrs. Ritchie was beyond their object clause. So they repudiated, and since it was ultra virus, they repudiated this particular agreement. And the company pleaded that they lacked the capacity to enter into a contract as it was outside the scope of the memorandum of association. Ritchie brought out an action claiming damages for breach of contract, and he contended that the contract was well within the meaning of general contractors. Remember, general contractors. And he also claimed that it was within the powers of the company. He also contended that the contract was also ratified by all the members of the company, so it was well within the purview of the company. That was what he contended. Mr. Ritchie contended. The case was brought before the House of Lords, and the House of Lords held that the contract was ultra virus to the company. Their observation is also interesting. Their observation was that the term general contractors must be taken to indicate the making generally of contracts as were connected with the business of mechanical engineers. And here it was something to do with financing. So financing has nothing to do with general contracting. That was the contention of the House of Lords. So it was held as ultra virus. So this is a classical case which brings about the case of ultra virus. So the ultra virus act, as in this particular case, even if it is ratified by all the members, it is definitely ultra virus. It's null and void ab initio. The next one which we have to see is the winding up. So winding up is a procedure whereby the functioning of the company is terminated. This can be done only by the due provisions of the law. As the company is a legal person, since it was born out of a law, it can be it can be terminated only by the due provision of the law. So winding up again is a lengthy procedure which we'll be seeing in the coming sessions. But here we should understand that it can be brought out only by the due provisions of the law. And the moment it is wound up, the company will cease to exist. So once wound up, the company dies. And the last characteristics of the company which we have to see is the legal restrictions. The formation working and winding of the company are strictly governed by law. It's a legal person. So in India, the winding of the company is governed by the Companies Act of 2013. Any action which is contrary to any of the provisions of either this act or any other law which is in force in India is going to be illegal. So all the legal provisions or the law of the country should be adhered to. Now let's recap what we have seen in this particular session. We have seen the characteristics of a company. We have seen 10 characteristics. They are the separate legal entity, perpetual succession, limited liability, separate property, the transferability of shares, common seal, capacity to sue, the doctrine of ultra vires, winding up, and finally the legal restrictions. So I'm sure you'll be able to remember at least quite a number of them, if not all of them. So now we'll come to unit number 3.